I think unleashed leaders are the individuals who really run towards change and are unafraid and are looking for innovation, do not fear failure. They're the individuals who know that no matter what, they're going to learn from it and they're going to grow and be better. I think unleashed leaders really know how to utilize the individuals around them and that they don't see themselves above, but as partners and teammates, and really capitalize on knowing that none of us are great at everything, none of us are strong at everything, but knowing how to utilize each other's talents and not see that as a threat, but see it as an advantage, and really partnering to get things done.
Welcome to the Unleashing Leaders podcast, where we work with willing leaders to accelerate the changes you seek. We'll learn from the experiences of different leaders facing real challenges and distill practical, purposeful steps to apply in your context. I'm Lee Scott, your curious co-pilot. Together, let's make positive changes for our companies and communities. Today, we are joined by Jen Bauer, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Culture at Miron Construction. We are here today to talk about really two things. One, what are we doing and what can we do differently to attract the right kind of talents to our organization that fuels the services that we provide to our customers? And then also both within that recruitment strategy and within our existing service processes, how can we tackle the infamous "that's not the way we've always done it here" kind of impediment that many leaders run into? So Jen, great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Why don't we start by talking a little bit about what it is that is happening at Miron? What are you guys doing in your industry with construction? I love your tagline, "Together, we're building excellence." And that's such a great play on words, but tell us a little about your organization and what you do.
Sure. Large construction company based out of Wisconsin. We do have multiple regional offices, many throughout the state of Wisconsin, as well as one in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we're going to be actually opening an office out of Marquette, Michigan towards the end of this year. So it's an exciting time. We continue to grow. Construction's been booming. We work in multiple markets, everything from healthcare to industrial, food processing, manufacturing, educational facilities, do a lot of work in the K-12 market. So we just continue to grow. We're about 1,700 strong with our field employees. And yeah, a lot of exciting things going on.
Oh, that's great. And it's a tough industry. I mean, you're serving multiple different industries. There's definitely a lot of economic cycles and seasonalities that affect your business and, everything down to the weather, to inflation, supply chain. And so a challenging business to be in, but one that creates the built infrastructure that allows all these other communities to thrive. So a lot of our listeners are going to be able to learn plenty from the types of challenges that you guys have to face every single day. So my first question for you is, given all the changes that are going on in the economy, in the marketplace, getting the right talent, and the trades in particular have been, I think, heavily impacted by this. I'm proud to say my son's going into the trades. It's a very fulfilling and amazing career. What are some of the challenges that you guys are seeing in today's market?
I think, like many different industries and organizations, the thing we're fighting with these days really is that the fight for talent. So even as far as our marketing strategies have really shifted from such a focus on getting work to more of a focus on getting people. So we're spending a lot more time working with our human resources department and really trying to figure out how we can position Miron to be attractive to talent. And it's definitely a little different between the office and the field. The trades are struggling. There's not as many people going into the trades, which is unfortunate because it's such a great career path. I look at kids coming out of high school going through apprenticeship programs and the fact that they're being paid while they learn. They come out of that apprenticeship with a great job and they're making good money. And I think we've traditionally always pushed the 4-year degree as that's the real way to, make it in a career. But there are so many fantastic opportunities in construction and in different industries to have a great life and great benefits and just a really fulfilling role and job and career.
Yeah, purposeful work, purposeful impact, and a much faster path to be able to have all those things. It's very accessible. I completely agree with you. Our society needs all the different types of skills that are out there. I think the idea that one size fits all is just kind of silly. So yeah, there are many viable paths out there. But yeah, when you look at talent as a funnel, There's a number of bodies, and there's a number of bodies that are capable to do that work. Then there's a number of bodies who are willing to do that work. And then there's a number of bodies that are available and accessible to do that.
Yep.
So, you're already starting with a smaller and smaller slice of a population of candidates. But I like one of the things that you mentioned, Jen, is that so often, I think one of the worst Hollywood taglines of all time is if you build it, they will come. If we get the business, the talent will come. And yeah, you got to have the business. I'm not saying that's not entirely false, but the idea that that's sufficient is silly, right? That you got to be marketing just as aggressively to bring in the talent as you are to bring in the customers. And I think that's been particularly true over the last couple of years, more so than the last couple of decades, where it's just like, look, that's the limit to growth. It's not our sales team, it's the talent to pull it off. Are there particular types of talents that you've been struggling to locate? And maybe we can use that as a more specific case study as we go through the conversation, because everybody's dealing with this. You are not the only one, but let's make it more specific.
Really, the two areas that we're focusing on right now are project managers with about 5 to 7 years of experience and project superintendents in that 7 to 10 year experience range. Our internship program has been a great funnel for us to get people in for getting new energy, new blood into the organization. But it really is finding those individuals who are already jump started in their career, have some experience under their belt, and that would maybe be looking to make a change for whatever it is we could offer, whether it's travel opportunities or benefits, but really people who could come in and hit the ground running, which again, even with our internship program, that's why we've had such success with it, because we bring them in and give them multiple summers of experience so that by the time they are hired on full time, they have experience under their belt. But again, there
Yeah.
is something to be said for coming in with a little bit more experience. But again, whether it's us or our competitors, everybody's really fighting for that group of talent, and it's very specialized. So that has been really where we've been focusing our efforts when it comes to marketing and our HR team.
I think that is a pattern a lot of businesses are facing. It's that early to mid career
Mhm.
leadership. You're talking about project management and superintendent, that's specific to your industry, but it's like I need to have enough trips around the block that you're able to help us lead these efforts and make this happen. I know that's definitely something we've seen in our business and with a lot of our clients. That's a trick. And I think historically, we had a little bit more time to kind of develop that through osmosis. You can get there eventually by just knocking around, and eventually you fell into it and you're like, oh, look, I am one. But we gotta accelerate that. We don't have 8 years to grow it from scratch, and it's maybe too expensive just to buy it off the
Mhm.
shelf and make it happen. So let's talk about two things. One, I want to hear more about the internship program, because what you guys are doing there is really, I think, something that many we're seeing with other engineering firms and construction firms. It's like, how do you accelerate growing your own so that you're getting closer there? But what are some of the other things that you guys are finding is attracting, is resonating with those candidates? And everybody focuses on salary. We know that's like 8 on the list. Yes, that's important, but that's not usually the determining factor. What are some of those other factors that you guys are doing that is making it a more compelling opportunity?
Yeah, I think honestly, it really is those other intangible things that organizations and where they focus their efforts and energy. And for us, I think a lot of it really does. I mean, I know everybody says they're people, but it's the way the teams work together. Myron is extremely involved in the community. It's a passion of our ownership, and it's become an expectation that when you come in our doors, you are going to be involved. And I think especially this next generation coming into the workforce, that is a critical component. It's something that they're very passionate about. This isn't just about a paycheck, and I'm not just doing a job. I want to have a job where I feel like I have purpose and that I'm passionate about what I'm doing and I'm giving back and I'm making a difference. And I think those things are things that we as an organization feel very passionately about. One of our values is building legacies, and we really do think about like what is the impact we're having, not only the facilities that we build and how do they shape the landscape of our world, but really what are those touch points and interactions we're having that leave an impact as well.
Great, great. Yeah, that sense of purpose, that sense of connection, that sense of contribution. Those are the things that truly are game changers. Again, assuming other things are in the same ballpark, that's where I'd rather be. But it's one thing for the marketing director and HR to they know this story, they're able to spin the tale, and that sounds all great on the brochure. But as they're going through that recruitment and interviewing process, do you run into challenges where you're like, okay, but the people who are already there, they're focused on getting the job done, right? And they're just like, okay, well, do you have this skill and do you have this experience and can you take work off of my plate so I can breathe? And so then that purpose and that connection story it's assumed it's still there, but it kind of gets lost. Do you see that and kind of going through that process? Has that been a challenge or a moment of missed opportunities at times?
So when I started at the organization, I think our revenue was around 272 million. And I'm coming up on 20 years, which is insane to think about. But I look at now and I think this year
Wait,
we're on
I'm guessing you were hired as an intern, Jen.
almost. I'd like to think
Almost.
that. Yeah. So I've had the luxury of being able to grow with the organization and see the changes that
Yeah.
have happened. And I mean, I think this year we're on track to hit about 1.8 billion, which again is
Wow.
incredible and just how
Yeah.
fast we've grown. But I think there's been some benefits to growing that quickly in the sense that we've been able to retain some of those things and those behaviors that really made us special when we were smaller, and we've been able to carry those through. I mean, I think about the fact that our owners were owned by two families, and there's three individuals from one family, one individual from the other. And it's been a family owned organization since the beginning. But our owners to this day still sit in on every interview for every employee
Okay.
because they are they're very involved in the day-to-day business, but they are also very particular about who joins the Miron team and who wears a Miron jersey. And they
Mhm.
just want to make sure that they have the chance to sit across the table or look someone in the eye and realize if they are fit for our organization, and they always talk about the fact that you can teach skills and things like that, the activities of a job, but you can't teach someone to be passionate. And
Yeah.
that is, I think, something you see right away in meeting someone. Like, are they passionate about our industry? Are they passionate about the job that they want to do? So I think it says a lot to our potential employees that our owners take the time to do that. We do a day long orientation for all of our new employees. And our owners spend an hour and a half of that day talking about the history of our organization and really immersing people into what makes our organization special. And we hear time and time again how impactful that is, that we're like, wow, the owners of this company are taking time out of their day. I just started, I've maybe only worked here for a week, and I get to spend an hour and a half learning from them what makes this organization special and why they're so passionate about it. And I think that it really goes far with new employees to see ownership so connected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the classic modeling the way. And what I'm thinking is some listeners might be saying, it's like, well, that'd be great if we were owned by a great family that was still passionate and connected. We're a massive bureaucracy or we're just getting started. I think the takeaway there, Jen, is, whatever level or size of organization you are, being able to have some higher level leaders, maybe you're the mid-manager hiring, get some of those higher level leaders to come to an onboarding with a group of your employees and be able to just take a moment to share their passion and their excitement. Ask them to review an interview. And if you're in that higher level position, maybe like, well, I'm only a mid-level manager. Well, you're higher level to somebody else. So you get in there and do the same for others. I think that's definitely a practical ask that then communicates versus like we delegate that to HR and then we do the perfunctory interviews and then sure you're on the job and let's go. Those little things send an implied message that then shows up in either the behaviors or the retention or the productivity of those folks right out of the gate. So very, very tangible. And the other thing I like that you said, Jen, is that when you're doing your interviews, it sounds like you guys have definitely adopted a philosophy as we're looking for the attitudes and in character as really the defining characteristics that you're seeking, knowing that the aptitudes and the skills are easier to teach. They're still hard to
Mhm.
teach, but
For sure.
yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit more about this internship program because that's something a lot of folks are doing is yes, it'd be great if I can just get somebody off the street that can hit the ground running, but those market conditions in the labor market aren't there right now in a lot of places. So you're busting up the system by going upstream, tapping them before you need them, getting ahead of it with this internship program. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I'd say probably about 10 years ago, we were lucky if we maybe had 3 to 5 interns across our organization.
Mhm.
And it was a few years back where we were starting to see that pipeline wasn't as full as it had been. It was really shrinking. And we knew that we had to get ahead of that if we wanted to continue to grow as an organization. So we really did invest a lot of time in building an internship program. This year, I think we have about 40 interns. And the hope is to increase that by about 20% next year. We want to continue to grow it. But really, it's been phenomenal both for the interns and for our organization because the goal is usually to get them in after typically after their first year of college. And then we like to bring them back every summer after that. So that by the time we are making that job offer or they're starting, they're coming in with 4 summers of applicable experience. They know the
Mhm.
people, they know our processes, they know our technologies, and they can really hit the ground running. And they've had a chance during those 4 years to really vet out, is this the organization for them? Do our values match theirs? And likewise, we're able to really gain an understanding if they're going to be the right fit and someone who's going to be successful with our organization. So they're partnered with our team members. They really do get a lot of not only experience, but I think as historically, we've given young employees a lot of responsibility and the support to make those decisions and make that happen and make that work. But I think a lot of our interns really appreciate the opportunity to come in and have that type of responsibility. And they're not just shadowing, they're doing the work. They
Yeah.
are learning on the job and really getting an understanding of the industry and having the opportunity to work with our seasoned superintendents out in the field who have been doing this for 30, 40 years. And
Mhm.
to be able to capitalize on that education in the field versus just in the classroom, I think is incredible.
No, it's powerful. And I'm even seeing it with some of our clients where they're now even getting down into high school and they're just saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, let's get a junior in high school that maybe has an interest and a knack for this. 'Cause like you said, not everybody's going to go through the college math. So,
Hmm.
what can we do to get them there? And you're like 16, 17-year-old, like, why would that be worth it? And you get to hand select them, you get to vet them, they get to vet you, and you get to bring them in. And now you've got a proven known entity that didn't cost you a whole lot to be able to find that versus paying a headhunter to be like, okay, scour Wisconsin and Michigan and Indiana or wherever else and get somebody to relocate. That's not easy either.
No, and it's incredible. We actually have a program, it's called Build Like a Girl. And the whole purpose of the event is to introduce young girls to construction
Yes.
and the opportunities that are available. So it's open to 7th to 10th grade girls. And we bring them in for a day-long event where they get to try their hand at masonry and operating machinery, and they learn about the industry. And it's really cool because right now, one of our virtual construction interns actually attended one of our first Build Like a Girl events. And when she came in, she talked about the fact that she remembers this woman showing on a computer virtual constructions and things that you could do. And now they're working side by side. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's incredible to see that happen where that spark of interest, it started, and to see it follow through and to see the growth there has been awesome. So yeah, I think it's doing those things where you're really introducing younger and younger kids to industries and what opportunities are available.
Well, you know what I love about this, Jen, is everybody's facing these conditions. And what I'm seeing in your leadership brand and style is instead of bemoaning, oh, the labor market's tough. Oh, I can't, it's hard to find good people. Nobody wants to work anymore. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that is even true. But instead of saying, that defines us, you're saying, okay, well, we're going to do given that. And it takes resources, it takes an investment of people's time to put on programs in the community like Build Like a Girl. And you may not see that payoff for 5, 6, 10 years. But then when you do, boom, suddenly it validates that you were doing the right thing. There was just a delay between
Yep.
doing it and the return on it. And you mentioned that one success story, but I bet you for every one of those, there might be 3 or 4 others that maybe they didn't become employees, but now they're involved in a business and they're thinking, hey, we've got to expand our facility or whatever. That turns into a referral or that turns into a
Mhm.
connection, or maybe they refer it to somebody else. So I think it's also those hidden benefits that we
Mhm.
aren't always as easily able to quantify, but that make that worth it. But the first time you did that, I bet you had to do some convincing. And then getting somebody to who's feeling the pressure of a schedule and the suppliers are all jacked up and you're like, "Hey, come do this event for 7th to 10th graders." Right?
Yep.
And they're like, "Why should I have to do that? We've never had to do that before." What was the way that you used to be able to recruit internally?
Yeah, I think we're lucky that we have a lot of people who are really passionate about what they do. And I think the opportunity to share that with the next generation is very attractive. To me, one of the best parts of the event is watching the girls come in at the beginning and they are so quiet and so introverted. And by the end of the day, you can't shut them up. Like they're so excited about what they've done. But a lot of it comes, I think, from the interaction of the individuals that are helping with the activities. And you can
Mhm.
see how passionate they are about their positions, and that translates to the kids. But internally, yeah, when we started it, I kind of remember bringing up the idea. It was actually something an agency we were working with had found a video from down south of Tech College had done something similar to introduce girls to construction. And I remember bringing it up, and yeah, I got a couple of funny looks about it, but we had done things in the past. We used to do a big event called Quarry Quest, where it was, again, really, that was focused on even younger kids of, we're talking probably more of the 5 to 13-year olds, and showing them experiences in the industry. So I think our company has always been big on focusing on that next generation and giving back, and how do we get people excited about what we're doing because we're so excited about it. So I think
Mhm.
that it really does help to have people who are open to new ideas, that get energy from trying new things. And I think a lot of our team members are like that. And we do have a lot of very type A personalities that work for us, and they're hard workers. And it's always kind of like, well, you're going to put a challenge in front of me. I'll show you. I'll take care of that. The first couple of years we've done it, it's grown, and it's gotten to the point where it's unfortunate because we have so many people within our organization that want to volunteer for that event. It gets to the point where we're like, we have more volunteers than we do attendees.
Ah,
So trying
ah,
to balance that. But I
yes,
think it's,
yeah.
again, it's just that people are so excited about it, and that opportunity to connect has been fantastic. So yeah, it didn't take a ton of convincing, because I think everybody was on board with giving something a try.
I think that you are discounting your talents. It probably took more than you realized, but you did a great job of selling it. So you got more. But, whenever there's been a success, people talk about like, well, we got lucky and we just were able to do it. And it's like, I actually, I'll reject some of those qualifiers. I mean, I know it's being humble and I think that's wonderful, but you had to create it. And that took purpose and that took effort. And maybe it was because things you did 20 years ago that made today possible. And you're like, well, we haven't done that yet.
Mhm.
Well, then start today so that 5, 10, whatever years from now, it's now possible for you too. So that's fantastic. So let's switch gears here a little bit if you're ready to. And it's so funny, whether you're trying to bring in new sales, you're trying to bring in new talent, don't bemoan the fact that you can't find any prospects or you can't find any candidates. Like go grow the prospect pool, right? Whether you got to go to 10th grade or third grade or like go upstream of it. And then the other thing that I heard you say is then when you do get a good candidate, make sure that you make those interviews and those onboarding experiences really stick because that's your conversion ratio, right? It's
Mhm.
like if I'm going out and there's only 10 candidates, but then I blow it on 8 of them with an interview that's not demonstrating the passion, the onboarding that's not making them stick, well, then it doesn't matter how many candidates I have, right? Like my conversion's not right there. So I think it looks like you're attacking it from both angles, grow the pool and then make that conversion within the pool just that much better. So switching internally then, even with such a great culture that you have, and even with the amazing growth that you're experiencing, we have that growth because we were doing something that was successful and that got us to where we are. And yet it's limiting us from then going to the next level. And that's where that whole famous, this is the way we've always done it, or that's not the way we do it here. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing. And again, it's not that you're bad because everybody has this. I want to first acknowledge that. I don't care how great your organization is, or how bad your organization is, we all have this and we all have moments where we have it. So, what does it look like and how do you detect when it's starting to rear its head? And then let's talk about things that you've been doing to kind of help address it.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's something every organization struggles with. We've always done it this way, or we tried that once and it didn't work. I think some of it is positioning people within your organization as change agents or advocates for wanting to try new things and having some energy around that. I think that's a huge thing. I think sometimes it's that mindset of being open to being innovative and thinking how to do things differently. And I feel like we're lucky at our organization because I think for the most part, we are open to change, and our owners give our leaders a lot of opportunity for stretch assignments and to bring up ideas. And honestly, I feel like if you can make the case for change, it's something that will be considered, and we weigh the pros and cons of it and think through it. And let's face it, sometimes change things work, sometimes it doesn't. But
Yep.
I think it's that ability to pivot when it doesn't, and not get weighed down by the fact that one direction maybe wasn't the right one, but really being able to switch gears and try something new, and maintaining that energy and enthusiasm for it, and not just getting stuck in the day to day. I
Mm.
think that's a big thing. And honestly, I think that's another area where I love having our interns on board because they bring such energy and new ideas. And I think they push us to think differently. I love when we get new team members on my team because, again, it's like that fresh set of eyes that looks at stuff from a different angle and it really kind of knocks you out of that mode of we're going down this path. And when someone starts questioning, well, why do you do it that way? And have you thought about this? Or it could be more efficient. And it really does like open your eyes and kind of jerks you awake in a sense to think about doing things differently. That's my favorite. And just being able to just see things through their eyes for the first time. And it reminds you why you're passionate about the work you're doing and why you value the organization you work for.
There was like, I don't know, 15 awesome things you said. I want to pull out a couple of them. The first one was this notion of balance around, hey, we want to create an environment where we welcome ideas and concepts. And there's a little bit of a threshold of a burden to say it's not just anything goes and it's just wild and crazy. Like you got to bring your case,
Mhm.
you got to advocate for it, you got to have thought through it enough to put together a pitch, for
Mhm.
why, hey, we used to build it this way, or we used to sequence the order of operation this way. We're now going to do it in a different way. So there's a little bit of a barrier in that sense, but that barrier is meant to kind of help bake the idea a bit. And
For
then we
sure.
look at it and we say, okay, let's run an experiment, right? And so once you cross that, then there's a tolerance then also on the other side to say, not every one of those ideas is necessarily going to work. I was with an organization, they're like, we absolutely value innovation as long as it works. There's got to be not only a tolerance for, but truly an appreciation for the value of those mistakes. Because, maybe that mistake reveals something that makes the next innovation that much better that we never would have gotten through analysis and modeling. So I like how you've got a little bit to get out there, then you get this grace period of experimentation, and then we learn from it, and then we take the best and move. And if it doesn't work, then hey, now we know.
Yep.
So I think there was a really good balance in how you articulated that. I find folks are either on one side or the other, and I think really great leadership takes both. The other thing I heard you share is you kind of tied together this whole notion of leveraging the value of these fresh eyes with interns. I think oftentimes we perceive those as a cost.
Mhm.
Like, okay, we're going to invest in them. It's taking my time to teach you or to show you, or you're slowing me down to have to drag you around to this, and explain this when I could have done it faster myself, or I'm giving it to you and then you're only getting it half right. And so we see the cost side of the ledger. And yeah, we know there's an eventual payoff down the road when they'll be able to do it. But you just mentioned there's also that immediate payoff, the value of those fresh eyes to ask them questions about some things we've taken for granted, and either we can then validate, like, oh, yeah, why do it? Oh, that's right, because these are the reasons it works. Versus, "Hey, why do we still do it that way? It's what we did in 1978, but it doesn't mean we have to do it here in 2023. So I like how you're looking at that cost as having an immediate benefit as well. So it's just trying to tease out a couple of the really cool nuggets that you were dropping there.
I think it's so easy to take for granted. Yeah, they're students and they're still learning, but let's face it, the rate of change these days is so incredible. And the things that they are learning and the technologies they understand far before some of us who've been in the industry longer do, and their willingness and openness to try. I mean, it's not fair to say that we don't learn a lot from them too.
Yeah, 100%. Our CEO, Cyrus, he has a great phrase: everybody learns, everybody teaches. And those can be happening literally simultaneously. Now, at the same time, you're trying to invite this experimentation, you're inviting these interns to contribute in new ways. I also sometimes find that there's a little bit of frustration that's experienced when not every idea is adopted and not every idea goes immediately and becomes the company standard. And there's a sense between one generation saying, well, it took me 15 years to get here, so even 10 years is fast. And then the incoming is like, well, I've been here 10 weeks. I don't understand why I'm not in charge of everything yet. So
Mhm.
there's those
Yeah.
expectations on either side that could be a little distorted, and maybe reality somewhere in the middle. So could you speak to a little bit about how we sustain that energy and that enthusiasm? Well, maybe it takes a little longer than the new folks wanted to, but also manage the expectations that maybe it is going to be faster than it took us.
Mhm. Well, I think even in our organization, the way we work has changed, and that can cause some friction at times. I think about right now, we're remodeling our headquarters. And what we're trying to do is create a lot more spaces within the organization where whether it's outside spaces or touchdown collaboration spaces to get people, because again, I don't think everybody wants to think about work as a place. It really is something we do and not a place we
Mhm.
go. And seeing there is a little bit of heartache, I think, with people who've been there longer. And when that wasn't the way things were, maybe when they started, seeing people take advantage of those spaces and working that way, there can be a little bit of friction in the sense of, but are they working? Are they working hard enough? And I think that change, again, it can take time and there's going to be little sticking points. But I think the next generation showing us, yeah, it can be done. And I am spending a lot of time here. So let me spend time in the space that I feel like is the best structured for me to do my job. And so I think over time, we're seeing a little bit of that just culturally, how that shifts because we are a very face-to-face business. But this next generation, knowing that they have so many opportunities for places they can go and they have different expectations, if we're not going to, I'm not going to say cater to, but if we're not even going to consider that,
Yeah.
it puts us at a disadvantage. And
Yeah.
we've created a more flexible work policy, remote work, summer hours, really relooking at our PTO policy and things like that, because we know that to be attractive and to be competitive, we have to think about all aspects of it. It's not just about paycheck. It's do I
Yeah.
have an opportunity to use some volunteer hours during my, use some of my work hours to volunteer? And yeah, can I be more flexible about where I'm working and just to make that time more enjoyable? Because let's face it, we all spend a ton of time at work. I think, what do they say? You spend a third of your life at work. And to me,
Yeah.
it's far too much time to be unhappy or disengaged. So if your environment impacts that, and let's face it, we're in the construction industry, we know the impact environment can have on someone. And
Yes.
to create a space and atmosphere that you want to spend time in, that really does influence how you function.
No, that's great. And you're right. Your product is creating those environments. And so you're learning from that across industries. And here you are, you're consuming your own product with your own remodel and causing us to rethink it. And I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it also depends on the job. Certain jobs
Mhm.
require you to be in person with a physical tool doing a physical thing during a certain time of day. But that doesn't necessarily mean the budget needs to be skewed this way. It could be like, okay, well, yes, when that needs to happen, then that needs to happen. But then there's times where other things could happen and that could be done in a more robust way. I know I'm going through a build project right now and getting my general contractors, like we're several hours apart. And so to be able to collaborate and do schematics online and remotely, we can't always just walk the job site. Like we make good advantage of the times when we do, but we can leverage and collaborate in other ways. So I think everybody's finding these new norms, these new ways to fold and connect and communicate that is opening up new possibilities, but causing some friction in the
Yep.
meantime. Well, Jen, is there anything else you wanted to share with our audience? How can they continue to follow your success story and the success story of Miron, or reach out to have you build a building for them? How can they stay in
Sure.
touch with you?
Definitely check out our website, www.miron-construction.com. We're on all the main social media sites, and we honestly spend as much time sharing kind of those things that set Miron apart as far as the activities we do, the fun we have, in addition to the work we're doing. It's not as easy to connect with a building. That's what we do. We understand it. We build spaces, but really it is about those relationships that are formed during the process, us being able to help our clients bring their dreams to life and bring their visions to life, and really understanding what they're trying to accomplish with the spaces that they're building. So we spend a great deal of time really partnering with our clients to understand that and to do great work. But we also have a lot of fun, and whether it's cultural things or activities that we do, volunteering. Yeah, we like to highlight all of that stuff because we're a very passionate group of individuals, and we want to make sure that the world sees that too.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unleashing Leaders podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss a moment that could be the key to your next breakthrough. Let's stay connected and contribute together by grabbing that @Unleashing Leaders handle on LinkedIn, YouTube, or your favorite network. This is Lee Scott. Keep learning, loving, and leading. Our future and our communities are counting on us.